Well, let's face it, there's been a lot of build-up to tomorrow's Canada Day. Milestone birthdays have a way of encouraging that. But what about July 2nd? What should Canada and Canadians be thinking about then and going forward into the next 150? We gathered 3 young political leaders to pick their brains. First, a little background on how they rose to their positions. Lindell Smith is a community activist who never saw himself as a politician until last fall when he was elected to Halifax's City Council in a landslide.
Mama, we did it!
Becoming the first Afro-Nova Scotian councillor in 16 years. Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois never planned on getting into politics either. He became a household name in Quebec as the face of students against tuition hikes in 2012.
Vous êtes cernés! Vous n'avez qu'une seule option! Reculer!
Now, he's traded his carré rouge for another uniform, bringing his fire and energy to Quebec's National Assembly as an MNA for Quebec Solidaire. And until last year, you may not have heard of Karina Gould. In the last federal election, she won her riding of Burlington, Ontario, ousting a longtime incumbent. She's a recent addition to Justin Trudeau's cabinet.
I, Karina Gould, do solemnly and sincerely promise and declare.
And the youngest female minister in Canadian history. So there used to be a time when young people got into politics, a lot of them, because they thought it was the best way to affect change. Not so much anymore, but you 3 have. So I want to get a sense from you as to why you chose politics to affect change.
Well, I think because it is the best way to affect change. If you want to have your voice heard, you need a seat at the table. And so for me, when I got involved, it was because I saw the country going in a direction that, I didn't think myself or my peers wanted to grow into.
But so many of the people in your generation have kind of run away from this as an option for change.
Well, I think that it's important to demonstrate that you can be successful as a young person in politics. And, it's like anything, it's hard, it's a lot of hard work, but at the same time, I think, the 3 of us here have demonstrated that if you're willing to put your name forward, if you're willing to step up, if you're willing to go out and listen to people, you can bring those ideas and those voices to whichever level of government you're participating in. And it's hard, it's a long game. You're not going to make a difference tomorrow. It might not be, in 6 months from now, but you're part of the process.
What about you, Lindell? You want to affect change like now. You don't want to wait 6 months or a year, you want now.
Yeah, so part of it is wanting it now, but then also knowing with the way that our government system works, it does take time. And you really have to really think about how can I do that in a way that I might affect change now, but also look towards the future. Mm-hmm. What I really think is important as well is if you look at us, we're 3 different individuals in terms of what a politician should be.
Yeah.
We don't fit the bill, and I think that is really important for Canada to see that you don't need to be the old style of a politician to be at the table and make the changes. As I tell young people, or to be in the tent, because sometimes we are as young people wanting to see change. We like to kick the tent and not let you build it, but we don't sometimes want to sit inside it.
You've said that nothing about you bleeds politician, that you are...
That's what I thought. That's what I thought until I got into it. And a politician doesn't mean somebody who has scandal or somebody who will smile and kiss babies. A politician can also be somebody who fights against the system and also wants to make sure that their residents, their constituents are represented, which to me is important.
Well, Lindell pointed at you, Gabriel, on fighting the system. There's no question you did that.
Yep.
You were a disruptor and you affected change.
Yep.
But you chose to get out of the disruption business and come into the political business.
Well, I think those 2 businesses can work together. And I often say I don't see myself yet as a politician, but more as an activist doing politics. And I'm part of a party which has always thought this way. We see, and I see politics and being a member of the National Assembly of Quebec as a way like another to change Quebec society.
Have any of your supporters from the old days come up to you and said, wow, you've sold out? You joined the other side. You're on the dark side now.
A few, but there's a lot more of young people that were in the streets in 2012 with me that came to me and that told me, you are just taking the next step in the same fight that we fought together.
You all want to talk about change to some degree, that there are changes you want to see happen. I'm assuming, seeing as you come from different backgrounds, you represent different ideals in many ways, that there's not agreement here on the change. So I want to try and get some sense of how you see the need for this country to change as we enter sort of a next milestone area after 150. What has to happen for Canada now?
One of the biggest things for me, and we're already seeing, is representation from all backgrounds. So I come from Nova Scotia, Halifax, a large history in terms of the African Nova Scotia community. We've been there, so my ancestors go back 400 years in Nova Scotia. So before Canada was Canada, my ancestors were there on that land. And even thinking back historically to our First Nations who were here 4,000 years before Canada. So I look at the sense of, if we have representation of what Canada is, because Canada is a diverse country, and our communities that we live in are so diverse. So if we're looking at our politics, they should represent where we come from. So one of the things that I see is that change of, how do we get representation? How do we have people step up?
So maybe we're not that different, because I think that actually, now that we're coming towards Canada's 150th, that the number one change that we have to work towards is reconciliation with our Indigenous peoples. And part of that is also appreciating the inclusivity that we have in Canada, but working to continuously improve it and to ensure that that diversity that, I think all of us agree with and all of us feel is really important continues, and that we work to make sure that it's truly inclusive.
I would ask three main challenges that I think are the political task of my generation. The first one being, of course, climate change, which is one of the big political challenges that humanity in itself has faced in its history. The second one, I think, is wealth and income inequality, which is rising all over the world. It's rising also in Quebec and Canada. And the third one, for me, is the revival of the Quebec independence movement. I'm part of that movement, and I think this project of Quebec's independence have to be redefined in order to really face the challenges of the 21st century.
Yeah, I don't imagine we get a universal agreement nodding
Probably
of the
not.
head.
Not on the third one.
No.
Probably not.
But it's a challenge for you who believe in it, because it's not there right now.
No.
The support for that idea,
That's why I
in
say
a lot
it's
of
a
ways, in
challenge,
young
yeah.
people is not
Yep,
there. Right?
Exactly. That's why I say it's a challenge. But what we're seeing right now is a new generation of young Quebecers, Anglophones and Francophones together, starting to take back that project and redefine it on their own terms, seeing it, for example, as the best way to build a new relationship with First Nations, seeing it as the best way to put in place strong and deep democratic reforms in Quebec.
Does talk of independence in Quebec resonate at all with you, Lindell?
In the broader sense, no, because that's not something that's happening with my community. That's something that I don't know much about in terms of, it's never been an issue for my people. But the thing is, I love being educated. I think it's so important. So you just speaking about that, I want to know more. I want to know why you feel that should happen. I want to know why the young people are doing that. We're all colleagues. No matter how you look at it, we're working to make our Canada better. So it might not be something close to me, but I'd be more than pleased to learn more about the issue.
50 years from now,
Yeah.
the point of the next, kind of major anniversary, and people look back at your generation. You'll be the old guys then, right? What do you want them to say about what you achieved?
When we look at our political world, I feel we're still working in silos. So one of the things I want to see achieved is that when we look at our political environment, it's, yes, you might be a different party, we might have different views, but that shouldn't allow us not to think how we're going to make Canada better. So what I envision is showing people that as an elected official, you can actually work with your different levels of government, no matter their party, and no matter what their beliefs are. But at the end of the day, we want to be there for the people. And when we start seeing that shift, so maybe a certain party might control the House, but why can't somebody take that portfolio, maybe another party that actually would really be beneficial to that issue? Why can't we look at politics in a different way? So, you know, for me, I want people to say, okay, Nadeau, push the envelope of how politics looked for our city, and maybe in Canada, who knows, 50 years from now. But for me, it's looking at, okay, he did that different. We can't go back to the old way of doing it.
Now that's radical thinking. You must like that.
Yes, I do, and you know, I think we live in a pivotal time. Not only in Quebec and Canada, but all major democracies are really at a pivotal time, and we are seeing right now a very strong wind affecting a lot of countries in terms of wanting major and deep system change. And I think 50 years from now, to answer your question, what I would like is to see that same phenomenon happen in Quebec and be part of it.
Karina, you get the last word.
I hope they say we got it right. So I think, you know, as was mentioned, we are at a critical juncture in history right now. And I hope that in 50 years, when looking back, that people can say we got it right. People were safe. We dealt with climate change responsibly. We ensured that people were included. We continued to work on that Canadian dream in terms of ensuring that, you know, future generations do better than previous generations, that we continue to have the freedoms and the rights that we have, whether it's democracy, the human rights, free speech, etc., that we don't have to, that in 50 years we don't say, we lost those things. And I think that we're at a moment, and, you know, we're talking about social change and upheaval in a time when people are questioning the direction that we're going in, and they're questioning whether they belong and whether they feel part of the national and international project that the world has built. And so ultimately for me, I hope that in 50 years, they look back on our political leadership and say, they got it right.
Well, it's a long list. It's not an easy list.
Politics
but
is
it's
hard.
Not, yeah, politics is hard. It's not an impossible list.
But it's worth it, so.
Thank you all for doing this, and we'll see you in 50 years.
Sounds good. Thank
Thank you for
Peter.
your service.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you for all that you've done.
Yes.